sometimes the most haunting stories aren't buried in the woods or whispered down alleyways. They live right inside the walls of quiet home, where someone knocks and a life simply vanishes. In 1967, a sweet, elderly woman named Louisa Dunne stopped answering her door. Her milk bottles piled up. Her curtains never opened again. And when police finally broke in, they found a scene so disturbing, it silenced an entire neighborhood. She had been murdered, brutally, and the killer, he vanished without a trace. No name, no face, just a single palm print on a window and a blue skirt stained with a truth no one could yet uncover. For nearly 6 decades, her case sat in a box, cold, silent, forgotten by everyone, except the man who did it. He moved on. He aged. He smiled at strangers. But what happens when science finally speaks of the dead? When DNA remembers what history tried to erase? And more importantly, what if this wasn't the only time he did it? Stick with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just a murder mystery. It's a story about time, justice, and the secrets that never die. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and comment below with your thoughts, because this case, it might not be over. When 75-year-old Louisa Dunne stopped answering her door, her neighbors grew worried. The milk on her step soured. Her curtains stayed shut. Something was wrong. Police forced their way inside. They found her dead, raped, strangled, alone. There were no signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. Just one palm print on the back window. And a blue skirt, holding a secret no one could read in 1967. She had been kind, gentle, loved, and suddenly gone. No suspect, no answers, just one terrifying question that echoed through the streets of Easton. Who could do this to her? The investigation began with urgency and desperation. Bristol police launched one of the largest manhunts in city history. They had no name, no witness, no motive, but they had a palm print on the rear window, and they had semen on Louisa's blue skirt, unseeable, silent, but stored. Thousands of homes were visited. Over 19,000 local men were fingerprinted, one by one, door to door, but the match never came. Whoever had done this didn't belong to the system, or had slipped just outside of it. And DNA? That was science fiction in 1967. What they collected couldn't speak, not yet. Detectives tried to reconstruct Louisa's final hours. Someone had likely climbed in through the back. There were scratches on the windowsill, broken truss, maybe even a smile just before violence. Time passed, and the evidence, once burning hot, turned cold. The crime was filed away with a label no one ever wants to see. Unsolved. But somewhere out there, a man knew exactly what he'd done. And he never came forward, because he didn't have to. Time moved on, but for Mary Dayton, Louisa Dunne's granddaughter, life split into before and after. There were no arrests, no faces to hate, only silence, the kind that eats away at a family's memory. Year after year, they waited for a knock, a call, something, anything. Instead, they got apologies, and promises, and storage boxes, filled with evidence growing older than the people who remembered the victim. Louisa's skirt, the palm print, the case file, all preserved, all untouched by justice. In 2009, the cold case unit reopened the file. Forensics had come a long way. Maybe now, nothing. Then in 2014, a second review. New tech. Fresh hope. Still nothing. It was like chasing a shadow in a room with no light. And by now, the man who had taken Louisa's life would be well into his 80s, if he was even alive. Most people thought, the killer must be dead by now. Why dig it up again? But Mary, she never stopped asking one question. What kind of person can live with a secret like that for so long? She would get her answer, but not yet. By now, the case was a ghost. Old, faded, almost forgotten, except by a small group of detectives who refused to let it die. In early 2023, the Avon and Somerset Cold Case Unit pulled Louisa Dunne's file one more time. Not because of a tip, not because of pressure, but because technology had finally caught up to the evidence. They retested the semen sample taken from Louisa's blue skirt in 1967, a relic so carefully preserved it was like a message in a bottle. This time, they got a full DNA profile. One match, one name, a man who had never once been a suspect. Someone who had built an entire life outside the shadow of what he'd done. His name? Ryland Headley, 91 years old, living quietly in Ipswich, a retired man with failing health, failing memory, and a secret buried for 58 years. The system had finally caught up with him, and now he would have to answer. It was just another quiet morning in Ipswich. Birdsong, tea on the table, the hum of a kettle, then the knock. Not like the one Louisa Dunne had answered 57 years ago. This one came with uniforms, with warrants, with quiet, practiced voices. Ryland Headley, 91, was placed under arrest for rape and murder.
I'm here today because I'm arresting you on suspicion of the rape and murder of Louisa Dunne, which happened in Bristol in June 1967. The reason I'm arresting you is because the police have investigative material that indicates you are responsible for that rape and murder of Mrs. Dunne, which happened at Britannia Road in Easton, Bristol, June 1967. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you don't mention when questioned something that you later align in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
In court, he appeared small, frail, insignificant. But when the charges were read aloud, rape, murder, June 1967, the room changed. Reporters whispered. Camera shutters clicked. A case older than most people in the courtroom had just roared back to life. Headley pleaded not guilty. No apology, no emotion, just silence. And across the courtroom sat Mary Dayton, Louisa's granddaughter, gripping a tissue, staring at the man who had taken everything from her family before she was even born. She later said, he looked so ordinary, like someone who couldn't hurt a fly. But we know what he did, and now the whole world will too. Bristol Crown Court. After nearly 6 decades, the courtroom doors opened to public and the past. The trial of Ryland Headley began. He sat still, expressionless, in a dark suit, his hands folded like a man waiting for nothing. But across the aisle, generations of Louisa's family waited for everything. The prosecution wasted no time. They told the jury about a blue skirt store for nearly 60 years, and the DNA that cried out from it. They showed the palm print. Lifted from the back window, Louisa's killer had climbed through. They presented a 1 in a billion chance that the DNA belonged to anyone else. The room held its breath. Then came the screams. Not in the courtroom, but from 1967. A witness recalled hearing a woman crying out for help that night. The memory, once dismissed, now returned with chilling clarity. Every piece of evidence built one truth. Ryland Headley raped and murdered Louisa Dunne, and for 58 years, he got away with it. On June 30th, 2025, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty. The next day, the judge spoke directly to the man history almost forgot. You took a life and left a family in torment for nearly 6 decades. You will spend the rest of your life in prison. You will die there. Mary Dayton cried. Not because it healed everything, but because finally someone had listened. Justice had come. Late, scarred, but real. The verdict was in. The sentence was passed. Ryland Headley would die behind bars. But as the courtroom emptied and the cameras turned away, one question remained. A question that investigators refused to ignore. Was Louisa Dunne his only victim? Because men like Headley don't just do it once. He lived in Norfolk, Suffolk, and Ipswich over the decades, towns where elderly women have been attacked, some murdered, in ways hauntingly similar to Louisa. Cold cases, unsolved, forgotten. Until now, the National Crime Agency has quietly reopened at least 3 unsolved cases from the 1960s and 1970s. Victims in their 70s, attacked in their homes, killed with no suspect ever caught. And they all had one thing in common. They lived where Ryland Headley lived. Police aren't saying much, but forensic teams are going through old files, looking for palm prints, DNA, anything that might whisper the truth after all these years. Because while the headlines read "Justice at Last," detectives are beginning to wonder, what if Louisa wasn't his only secret? What if the truth is still buried? And what if the real question we should be asking isn't how he got caught, but how many times he didn't? Ryland Headley may have taken one life, or many, and somewhere, in an evidence box sealed by dust and time, the next victim's voice may still be waiting to be heard.